Hello, Andy Bennett with Interactive Learning here. In this brief video, I'm going to walk you through the 3 most important aspects of teaching remotely. Before we begin, let me introduce myself and provide you with a little background. My name is Andy Bennett and I am the president of Interactive Learning. I hold a master's in education leadership and have taught all levels of education, kindergarten through adult. My company, Interactive Learning, is an educational technology company that trains, sells, develops, and supports the use of technology within JRTC and middle school leadership classrooms around the world. Over the last 8 years, I've been privileged to travel all over the world, meeting, working, and training instructors on how to integrate technology into citizenship and leadership programs. Our primary partner is Turning Technologies, a leading edtech company out of Youngstown, Ohio. The purpose of this video is to share information and lay out the basics for delivering successful online lessons and assessments. The video is broken into 3 categories. First, we will look at the major aspects to consider when deciding on a web meeting platform. Next, we will look at the 2 types of education delivery, synchronous and asynchronous. Synchronous instruction occurs when you teach students in real time. They can see your face, hear your voice, and react to your instruction. Asynchronous instruction occurs when students learn at their own pace through video, web, or text assignment, and then submit proof of their work through completed assignments or assessments. Keep in mind that if you are not planning on teaching students in real time synchronously, that you can skip ahead to the section on asynchronous instruction below. Before we look at specific web meeting platforms, let's first discuss 3 very important features to be aware of when selecting a meeting service. Number 1 is audio. How are your students going to hear what you're saying? Sounds pretty obvious, right? Well, not necessarily. Keep in mind that depending on the platform you use, participants may have options to connect via phone, computer audio, or both. Sound quality-wise, phone is generally the best. However, that may not always be an option since some students may not have access to a phone. In that case, it would be best to allow for phone or computer audio, also called VoIP. Be aware that VoIP works fine when all participants have a strong internet connection. If not, you run the risk of poor audio quality, bounce back, and that terrible digitizing sound. If you find yourself dealing with poor audio quality on a student's line, you can simply mute their device. So in summary, for audio, if possible, choose a platform that has the option for both phone and VoIP connection. Second is video. How are your students going to see what you're discussing? This one obviously relies heavily on your and your students' internet connection speed. The faster the speed, the higher quality of the video. While there are subtle differences between the video connection of the platforms I will mention momentarily, all provide a quality video connection given proper upload and download speeds. The last feature to consider is interactivity. How are your students going to engage with you during the lesson? Of the feature categories listed here, this one has the largest variance between platforms. What is simple and common on one platform may not exist on another. For example, if seeing everyone's face during a class discussion is important to you, Zoom or GoToMeeting are great options. Private and group chat, native apps, meeting recording, whiteboarding, and co-organizer functionality, and virtual backgrounds are a few of the popular features available in meeting platforms. Since meeting platforms are usually decided and distributed to teachers by their districts, and since the list and their respective features are ever-changing, we're not going to speak to any specific platform. Do keep in mind, however, the 3 major features mentioned previously: audio, video, and interactive features. Now that we've talked about meeting options and some different features to look for, let's look at the 2 different types of education: synchronous and asynchronous. While there are many options to teach both synchronously and asynchronously, I'm going to focus on the ones available through Turning Technologies. For my JROTC and middle school leadership instructors, they will recognize the TurningPoint dashboard. So if you plan to teach students and cadets in real time, your TurningPoint dashboard and content, be that PowerPoint or question lists, will work perfectly with that, and you can engage cadets with content that is already created. Before diving into the asynchronous option, let's look at how to use TurningPoint to engage your cadets from home. Here we have the TurningPoint dashboard. Keep in mind, for my Navy and Air Force instructors that are using TurningPoint Cloud, the color scheme will look different for the PowerPoint, Anywhere, and self-paced polling. However, the setup and process for this is going to be the same whether you're using TurningPoint Cloud version 7 or TurningPoint version 8. Keep in mind that these steps are predicated on you having your content and your software, be that on a stick or whether you had backed up all of those files and folders onto a separate location. With your TurningPoint dashboard launched, click Mobile Responses in the upper right. For my TurningPoint Cloud folks, in the upper right, you'll have Responseware. Click to connect. The instructions for connecting are going to be the same whether you're using TurningPoint Cloud or TurningPoint 8. Once we click Enable or click to connect, you will see the Mobile Session Options window pop up. By default, the session ID is selected as random. If you choose to use a random session, just know that every time you launch a new mobile response session, you're going to get a different number. You can, however, reserve up to 10 different session IDs. So if you are teaching in Cortez, you could reserve Cortez 1. And then every time your cadets are going to join you on a mobile session, you're just going to have them enter the session code Cortez 1. Right now, I'll just use JROTC. Before starting the session, let's look really quickly at the session options. Most importantly, we want to make sure that this top box, Require Participant Accounts, is unchecked. You do not need your students to sign up for a student account. Please leave this unchecked. Past that, it's really a personal preference. I would recommend requiring a first name, requiring a last name, and then if you have some sort of classroom ID, you could have that there, either requiring as an option or not showing at all. And then your email is again required, optional, or do not show. It's up to you. Participant messaging, keeping in mind this is synchronous education. So while you are delivering instruction, do you want your cadets to be able to send messages to the presenter only? That's the default. Not message at all, or participants may message the presenter and all participants. The default is a great setting. If you want to open up for more dialogue, you can open it up for your cadets to message both you and other participants. For your reference and for your students' reference, just because they are messaging between each other during the session does not mean that you will not have access to those messages. You will be able to see those messages in a report on the back end. So just mention to them that you will have access to those messages even if they are not sending the message directly to you. On the bottom, the question display options. If you are aware of students that have low bandwidth, which may be a possibility, you may choose to display the text only. It's not going to show images, it's just going to show the text of your questions. If you're not too worried about the bandwidth, then you can leave it as the default of display text, images, and content to participants. Once you have your session options set, click Save, and then click Start Session. The status window then pops up. You see your session ID. This is again the session that you are going to ask your students to join, who you're signed in as, how long the session has been live, how many connections you have. We'll see this number go up, and then what your signal strength is. If you have a weak signal, then that will impact how well students are able to ring into questions. So with that connected, we're going to close out of this. Before we demonstrate how the 3 polling environments work, let's first show how your cadets can connect to your mobile session. Students can connect to your mobile session through the TurningPoint mobile app or through any web-enabled device. First, let's show the TurningPoint app. Students can access the TurningPoint app on their Google Play or Apple App Store. Once downloaded, students open the TurningPoint app. Very important that they select Guest. They do not need to sign in because they don't need to have a student account. They'll say Guest, and then this is where they'll enter the session ID that you set up. Again, mine was JROTC. Yours can be Cortez 1, whatever you want it to be, or you can do random. We click Join Session. These are the options that I chose to select on the session's options menu. And then I click submit. And now I have joined the session. It says, please wait for presenter. It's important to note that the only thing that will show up on the TurningPoint app and the browser edition are the questions. So when we get into PowerPoints, keep in mind that all of your slides will not show, only the question slides will show, which is why you may need to have a meeting option, as we mentioned before. Next, let's look at the browser option. Simply instruct your students to go to TT for Turning Technologies, poll, POLL.com, ttpoll.com. Enter the session ID and the required information. At this point, your students have joined the session, and now we need to launch one of the polling environments through TurningPoint. For those that are new to TurningPoint, the 3 polling environments are PowerPoint, Anywhere, and self-paced polling. Think of them as lesson mode, review mode, and test mode. We'll start with PowerPoint and move across. As mentioned before, we are assuming that your content is already created. We locate the PowerPoint that we want to engage and click Start Now for PowerPoint polling. PowerPoint polling is an add-on to Microsoft Office. So in addition to your home, insert, design tabs along the top, now we have TurningPoint along the top. It's a best practice to reset our session. And then once reset, we can launch our slideshow. We see here on our app that it says, please waiting for presenter. As I mentioned, only the questions are going to show up in the TurningPoint app. So until I get to a question, both the mobile version and the app version are going to say polling closed. As soon as I open a question, we see that the screen automatically changes. It shows what the slide looks like and gives an option to respond along the bottom. So with both of our responses in, we go back to our PowerPoint. Looking on the top, we see polling is open, 2 responses, one from my phone, one from the browser. I click one time to close the polling, and it shows my responses. One person said B, one person said C. We see this also in the app, as well as the browser edition. Once the instructor goes to the next slide, we now see the next question where students can respond. As you can see at this point, everything is the same within TurningPoint and PowerPoint polling. It's just your students are using mobile responses rather than clickers in a classroom. All of the features within PowerPoint polling remain the same. You can see all of the competition aspects along the bottom here. And then again, once we get to non-questioning slides, it goes back to polling is closed. This is where your meeting options are going to come into play. So if you have Zoom or GoToMeeting or Microsoft Teams, Google Hangouts, whatever it is, that's where you would rely on that screen sharing to be able to show your screen, the audio portion for them to be able to hear your voice, and then once the questions come up, we switch back to using TurningPoint right here. Once you've completed your lesson, you can close out a PowerPoint, choose to either save or not save the PowerPoint, and then choose to either save or not save the response data. That's the clicker data. Now we're back into our dashboard. Next, let's look at Anywhere polling. This is your review mode. So we've got lesson mode. Next is your review mode. What if I wanted to review some of the points covered in the last lesson? We would highlight a question list rather than a PowerPoint. Highlight a question list and click Start Now. Then we see in the upper right-hand corner a little floating show bar that allows us to jump to different questions, or if I just click play, it will jump me to my first question. And exactly like we had before, we see the question pop up with the ability to respond on the mobile app as well as in the browser. My 2 responses are in. I click close. Shows my responses. And then I just click play. Takes me to my next question. And we continue on in this format. Very, very straightforward, very simple. Again, this is for synchronous education. This is where you are all on live at the same time and answering questions. If all you plan on doing is a review during your class time, you would not necessarily need to have a screen sharing capability because all of the questions would show up on your students' devices. One other very useful tool within Anywhere Polling is, in addition to asking questions that are already populated, you can ask questions on the fly through the drop-down, quick poll menu. You can ask multiple choice questions, short answer, numeric, essay. You can take attendance. I like to do the custom question. Type your question in here, and then with each answer, do a return space to show that you've got 3 options here. We click Start Polling, and then your question shows up right on the screen. With the question that you select on the fly, once your students are in and you stop the polling, because TurningPoint doesn't know what the correct answer is, you can simply right-click and mark as correct. Now, when looking at reports, you can see that even though this question was added in on the fly, you've already graded that question. Once you're done with all of your questions in Anywhere Polling, you can click the X button to close out. It'll ask, do you want to save the current data? We say save. That session file report will go into your sessions folder. You can click save there, and then you have the option to look at the reports through the Manage tab. Finally, let's look at the self-paced polling option. Again, this is the testing option. We'll use the same question list as before. Now, rather than Anywhere Polling, we're going to do self-paced polling, which will allow students to go at their own pace. So whereas Anywhere Polling, everybody was on a single question at a time, self-paced polling allows students to skip ahead, go back, and take as much time as they need to on any question. We click Start Now. There's a few different screens we have to go through. We click Accept Sign-ins. We'll want to leave participant sign-in off. Test time limit, you can say give them 10 minutes for this. And then under completed test message, you have the option to give the point total, percentage, both, or a custom message. We'll just give them the percentage once they've completed the test. We click OK. And then once we're ready to start the test, we click Start Polling. Looking at our different devices here, we see on the browser edition, you've got your answers along the bottom, and we can skip ahead. We can jump around to different questions, and then once we're ready to answer it, we just click the option there. It goes from a gray to a blue, indicating that we've answered that question, and we can just go at our own pace in whatever order we want to. Same idea with the app version. You can tap along the top, 2, 3, 4, or you can swipe left and right with your finger to move through the test. So that's what's happening on the student side. On the instructor side, you have the option to click Live Results to see how your students are doing. We see right here that Andy iPhone has answered 3 questions, has only got 1 of them correct, and had skipped question number 2. You can also see Andy Browser has 4 questions answered, but hasn't got any of those correct. As they are going in and answering new questions, that will update live. Now Andy iPhone has answered 2 questions and has a 50% so far. Once the time expires or everyone has their answers in, you can click Stop Polling. As soon as students finish the test or the test is stopped, they'll see their percentage right here. On the teacher side, we can click Save, and then that session again goes into our Sessions folder. So to recap, to use TurningPoint for synchronous remote instruction, we're going to go to our mobile responses, or using TurningPoint, go to Click to Connect, select our session ID, have students download the TurningPoint app, or on a web browser, go to ttpoll.com, enter the session that you start here, and then launch either PowerPoint, Anywhere, or self-paced polling. We've covered synchronous education using TurningPoint. Let's turn to asynchronous or on-demand education. To accomplish an asynchronous learning environment, we're going to use the TurningPoint web polling. This may be new to my JROTC and middle school instructors, but I'll show you a few ways to be able to use this to schedule polling. First, you'll need to go to instructor.turningtechnologies.com. Instructor.turningtechnologies.com. Once there, click Get Started and sign in. Make sure that you are using the email that is assigned to your Turning account. Once signed into your Turning account, you'll see your courses. Most likely you will have no active courses. To create a course, simply click the green button in the upper right. We'll call this my 2020 online class. Now that our course is created, we can select that course. Next, it'll take you to the Content tab. This is where you can create your own tests. At the time of this recording, there is no way to pull in TurningPoint question lists or PowerPoints. However, that is a feature that Turning Technologies is working on as we speak. For right now, I'm just going to show you how to create content using the online portal. First, let's create a folder. We'll call this my online courses folder. And then once in that folder, I'm going to create content. This is my test review. Once in content creation, we can create a number of different items using the green plus button in the upper right. Using the drop-down, we see that there are 4 question options: multiple choice, short answer, numeric, and hotspot, as well as a text category that's not questions. So we may want to start with a text category, and this is where we can provide, here are my instructions for this test. Okay. Notice there are quite a few options in the text editor. Bold, italic, underline, strike through. You can add an image, and you can even add a YouTube video. Text color, highlight color, alignment. You can change the heading. You can add links, and then have bullet points. A bunch of different options along the top right here. We'll come back to the video since that may be one that you want to utilize in your test. For right now, we'll just leave this as our instructions. We click Save. Now we're ready to create our first question. We're just going to do one of each just to give you an idea. Again, click the drop down. First, we're going to select a multiple choice question. Here, I'm going to type in my question. So what is the capital of Colorado? Hit the Tab button to take you to your first answer option. To add additional choices, click the plus button along the bottom. And then to select a correct answer, hit the little toggle button to the right. Notice the options on the right-hand side. You can make questions anonymous. You can assign points, allow for multiple responses if there are more than one correct answer, and allow for participant comment in scheduled sessions. So we'll show you scheduled polling in a little bit. If you would like the students to be able to comment on a specific question, you can turn that box on. For right now, we'll just assign this as a 10-point question. We click Save. Now that question is done. Let's look at a short answer question. Short answer questions can be done a number of different ways. You could do a fill in the blank like this, or you could just leave it as a question. Either will work. To enter correct answers along the bottom, and then hit Enter. You can have multiple correct answers. If you wanted to allow for common misspellings, you could do that. And again, the points along the right-hand side. So there is our short answer question. Next up is a numeric response. Type the question in. Again, the answer along the bottom. For numeric questions, you can choose to have a specific value or a range. The range would just give a plus or minus. The last type of question is a hotspot question. This type of question requires a mobile response, whether that be the app or the browser edition. Type in the question on the top, but then we upload an image and then add the hotspot on top of our image. When cadets click anywhere within that hotspot area, their answer will be counted as correct. Let's add one more question and show how to add video to your web polling questions. keep in mind that you can add a video to any of the question types. You can type in a question, or if you want to just let the video do the questioning for you, you can click Insert Video, and then you're going to find your YouTube video, copy the URL, and paste directly in here. 360 is kind of small. I generally do either 480 or 720 to make the video a little bit larger just in the screen. Once you've completed all of your questions, you can now share this content with your cadets. You can do this in two different ways. Since this section is focusing on asynchronous, we're going to schedule the polling. Keep in mind that if you would like to, you can start a session from here, give this session ID to your cadets like you did before with the Turning app or ttpoll.com, and then progress through the session like we did with the synchronous options using TurningPoint. So that is an option. Since we already have content in TurningPoint and we're trying to find a way to do this asynchronously, we're going to focus on the scheduling aspect rather than the live polling. To schedule a test, we're going to click the Schedule button from the content that we just created. Click Schedule. This is the course name that it's under. You can change the session name if you'd like to. Right now it's Test Review. And then you set the dates and the times that you would like to start this at. So if I want to start it now and have it run through the end of Friday. So Friday at 11:59. So between now and Friday night, your cadets need to finish this assignment. The time zone will always reflect the computer that you are currently on. Make sure that we do not require a participant sign-in. That's going to make them create a user account, student account. It's not necessary. Similar to what we saw in mobile sessions within TurningPoint, we can require a first name, require a last name, and then either optional, hide, or require an email as well. Once you have your settings dialed in here, we click Schedule. It stays on the content, but we see up here, we click on Go to Schedule, it will jump us from Content over to the Schedule tab. So here is the test review that I just created. What you'll want to do now is click the Share button right here, copy this link, and then send this link to your cadets. What scheduled polling looks like as a cadet is this. Those were my instructions from the beginning. Typed out my instructions. Once I'm done with that, I click Next. What is the capital of Colorado? Answer that question. Click Next. What is the birthplace of Marine Corps? Tun Tavern. Next. What year did the United States celebrate its independence from England? 1776. Next. Locate the state of Ohio. You can zoom in and out if you'd like to. And once you found Ohio, just click. You'll see a little button right there. As long as it lands within the hotspot that the teacher had indicated, that will be counted as correct. Click Next again. Here is our Veterans Day. So what day is Veterans Day? So the thinking is that they would click to watch this video. And then once the video is done, the information from this video, they would be able to answer right there and then click Finish. Once completed, it says thank you for participating, and then the students can close out of their browser, and that is done. On the instructor side, again, logging back into our instructor.turningtechnologies.com, if we come straight into here, we can go into our 2020 online course, and now we can go into either schedule or results. Both of them will take you to the same spot. Let's go to results. There's nothing in our gradebook, so we go over to sessions. And then there is our session. So test review is in progress, 5 questions. Look at our reports. And we can see right here by question how people have answered. Or if I want to see by participant, I can go over here. Participant's probably going to be blank because we're having everybody sign in as guests. That's not a problem. Just go over to guest. We can see there's Andy Browser's answers. Look at the details, how he answered. Then we can go back and look at a different student, or just look at this as a whole as to how the entire class did. So that wraps up the three main aspects that we were wanting to cover in this training. The meeting options that you need to consider, audio, video, and interactive features, synchronous options using TurningPoint, and asynchronous options using TurningPoint Web. While we understand that there are many options that you can use, we trust that this training has been valuable to you, especially if you already have content with us and are looking for ways to engage existing PowerPoints and questions. We understand that not all of your questions may have been answered during this training. If you have specific questions that you would like to follow up with me, please click on this link. It will take you to a Google form. Once completed, I will get a notification that you have questions about specific areas of this training, and then I will follow back up with you as quickly as possible. We again thank you for your time in watching this video and look forward to working with you closely in the future. Take care, stay safe, God bless.